like even as we are all attending this meeting, it's still something which is still not sunk in. I can't believe that this event is happening. It's still very unreal. It still seems very unreal despite, having been there immediately after the death. For all of us, I think Arvind has been a friend who's always there when in need, a real friend. And somehow it was very comforting to have him, to know that he's there in Mumbai. Anything in Mumbai, it was always like, yes, Arvind is there, so no problem. So it was like we took it for granted that there is a home, and we felt free to invite other friends, activists, to say, oh, Arvind is there, and even without getting his consent, we just tell him, Arvind, Preeti are there, they'll take care. It's not an issue. Pass on contact numbers. So it used to be something which was, very difficult. The level of comfort that, the Arvind's presence had given all of us, where many things he was, without intruding, without imposing, but always there. He kind of, it was a quiet support from behind, always mindful of, maintaining the boundaries, but at the same time making all of us very comfortable that we could approach him at any point and on any issue, whether it is small or big. It could be just a pickup at the airport, or it could be just staying overnight, or it could be just brainstorming on issues. So at every level, one word which all of us felt was completely comfortable with in Arvind's presence. We didn't feel awkward about sharing, even most uncomfortable issues which we would hesitate to speak to others. So this is the kind of, friend that he was, I think, which is a feeling shared by many of us. And he was, like part of the family. The fact that he's related to Suresh is one part of it, but it's not all relatives who mean the same way. He's more than a relative, more than a friend. And in fact, my younger daughter would sum up, but the moment we heard, both my children are also very comfortable. Arvind Periyappa is there, okay, then it's like taken for granted. You need to go to Mumbai, he's there, he'll take care. That was the kind of presence. And my younger daughter, when she heard, she just said, Amma, the one feeling that one relative, if at all there is one, I really regret not spending more time is Arvind Periyappa. I really regret that I didn't get to spend more time with him. So though they had met him on a few occasions, they stayed with him. But if it's coming from a person of that generation, she's early 20s. So whether you're in your role, and from my mother-in-law who's 90. So no matter what the age, everybody felt across the age group comfortable to be with Arvind. Everybody felt that he was a friend. And so I think this is a loss which, can never be compensated. And yeah, I think, whatever I say is still not sufficient to communicate what he means to all of us.
Arvind and I were colleagues in Bharat Petroleum Corporation, but we did not work together. It was towards the end of I retired in 2009. And before I retired, about 2 years before that, we started getting close. And it was on books only. Suddenly, both of us found out, I found out that he loves books, and he found out that I love books. And we used to go to Ballard Estate to a place which is known to the book lovers there. And that was Smoker's Chamber. Smoker's Chamber was a place where old books were sold. A nice place. So Arvind took me there, and then I got became a frequenter there. After I retired, Arvind had told me at the time of retirement that please don't come back to the office again. So there was a reason why he said that, which I realized later. Because our office becomes our identity, and it should not be so. at all. So Arvind made that point actually, but I did not listen to him. I used to come to him. So he used to make an appointment. He used to he Arvind loved to have lunch. So we used to have lunch together. Arvind would say that uh, come around 12 o'clock. So I would go there around 12 o'clock. Then we'll chat about books. Then he'll take me to a South Indian restaurant in Ballad Estate, which was very famous. And that is where I loved the Pungal there, Pungal. And so Arvind used to, next time onwards, Arvind remembered that. So Arvind used to say that, Aaj Pongal nahi hai. There is no Pongal today. So don't come today. So then over time, during the last 2 years, we really became very close. During the last 4 years, we used to meet once in a month by and large. He used to introduce me to various eateries in Bombay, which I did not know about. Uh, for example, Nutcracker. Although I was there in Ballad Estate, close to that, I never knew about Nutcracker, and never knew what kind of food they served. And what a beautiful place that was. I mean, it was typical of Arvind to take you to all the quaint places, and then we would have chats over there. Those are places which are very suitable for friends to have chats with. Uh, Even he took me to the clubs a couple of times. He took me to a Irani restaurant near Xavier's College, which also I did not know about. I forgot the name of that place. Uh, I think, no, I forgot the name of the place. Over time, uh, our friendship became such that I learned that Arvind reads faster than me, much faster. It is unbelievable, actually, the speed in which he read several books at the same time. And I used to feel I used to feel a little complex initially, but then I found that this person is so brilliant. He shines. He has such shine. You can never feel inferior to him because he's like that. And he was a large-hearted person. I have never seen a more large-hearted friend. His mind was open for everybody. And yeah, on books, I used to follow him. Although our tastes were different. I used to like reading a lot of Latin American stuff. He used to like reading a lot of British stuff. Uh, some of his favorites were Clive James, for example. I never read him before. It was on Arvind's suggestion that I read, and I found him good. So we used to have a lot of common authors and a lot of uncommon, different authors. I like reading poetry. Arvind did not like poetry too much. Uh, uh, Once I had a crisis about 3 years back. I had a crisis, and in the morning, I wanted to talk to somebody, and I just called up Arvind. Arvind, I just want to talk. No solutions required. I just want to talk. So Arvind said, "Are you in a position to come?" He was in Ballad Estate, and I am in Seawood in Navi Mumbai. So I said, "No." Uh, Arvind said, "Then I'll come. Just hold on. I'll come in about hour and a half." So Arvind came about an hour and a half later. It was raining very hard at that time. So we sat together in a small cafe near my house, and I talked to him for about a couple of hours, and he just listened. And everything that I told him, he kept in mind. So when we would meet, he would ask details about how I'm dealing with it. So I found that this person, as over time, I found that this person, number one, obviously he was blessed with brilliant memory, an exceptional memory. And he also had great deal of ability to catch the non-verbal cues in a friend. He used to look at somebody, uh, uh, look at me, and used to know what mood I am in, and then uh, he used to align his conversation in my mood only. So he was quite an observer and quite compassionate and quite able to tune into a friend in any mood that he had. I used to find all these qualities invaluable because few people have that. So that's how Arvind became like once in a month. I it became a habit that I can't not have a chat with Arvind, and I used to have chats on with him on WhatsApp only. So mm, two other common factors we had. One is that I studied history. Arvind also studied history. I came from Kolkata. Arvind also lived in Kolkata, and he had good memories of it. But Arvind, of course, Arvind was rule breaker in many ways. He was a rule breaker. He was known to be a rule breaker. Uh, uh, for example, he's wearing of chappals and Hawaii and bush shorts over the trousers is his signature in BPCL. That only Arvind Krishnaswamy can do it, because many times his bosses have tried. He didn't give a the same. So that was one. The other rule breaking incident, funnily, I'll tell you. Uh, I used to bring whenever we would meet. I used to bring something from a Bengali shop nearby. So so once I brought uh, mm, biscuits which are available in Calcutta only, Britannia thin arrowroot biscuit, which is not marketed in Bombay. Britannia thin arrowroot biscuit and a small jar of new jaggery, liquid new jaggery. I was not very sure whether Arvind will like it, but Arvind took it home. And later on, when I asked him, Arvind, how did you like the jaggery? He said, absolutely fantastic. I said, how did you eat it? He said, I just took it like this and ate it. I never knew anybody could eat new jaggery like that. But Arvind did not care for any rules such. It was his own rule. So to close what I was saying, I made a Facebook post about him, which I'm not going to read now. I'm only saying things which are different. Arvind, last time when we spoke, I said, Arvind, uh, long time we have not had a cup of coffee. So he said, I'm not well. I said, then we'll talk. Arvind said, I can't even talk. Then I was very concerned. I was very concerned because it was unlike Arvind. So I wrote, then you must take care of yourself. And I told him that I am going to Hyderabad for a teaching assignment. He said, most likely we are going to meet at Hyderabad only because I am also going to Hyderabad. So that was, I think, 3 days before he died. Obviously, when he died, it does not still sink in, because looking at his photograph, I still believe that I can talk to him now. I think all his friends who were really close to him would still talk to him. He was like that. I think that's all that I can talk about Arvind.
So I first met him decades ago via my brother, Anish. Some of you might know Anish. So I can't really place a year on it, but, you know, easily about 40 years ago, I think. And at first, I wondered how Anish and Arvind became, they became very close and kind of best friends because their lifestyles were quite different. Those of whom are there and who remember Anish will know exactly what I mean without my going into detail. But then I realized there were some values that they shared between them And this is what brought them close. And one was kind of humanity, another was kindness towards people, and compassion. And there was something about these two kind of unlikely people that brought them together and made them really close. And given that Arvind was a friend of Anish's, he became my friend. And when Anish died very young, Arvind stayed my friend, for which I was very grateful. Many of you have already mentioned books. Arvind was a voracious reader, but I have to say, there were times I wondered, Arvind, have you read all of the book, really? Or have you read beginning, a bit in the middle, and a bit in the end? But anyway, whatever he did, he could speak so authoritatively about all the books he read. And he had this kind of voracious appetite for knowledge. So although I didn't meet him often because I don't live in Bombay, I met him from time to time, but I would get emails from him, sometimes really, lovely, obscure topics. Like I just pulled up one, the 101 best movie endings, and, other articles like that. And I think, Arvind, how do you have the time? How do you keep such a big job going and at the same time manage to read all these books, all these articles, and then spread them around? And sometimes he would send me articles or even discuss quite, I thought, obscure details about UK politics. I never knew the answers, but Arvind always did. So, great respect for everything he knew, everything he shared, all the friendship. And, I have to say, my Kindle, when I first bought a Kindle and I took it to Bombay, Arvind said, oh, just hand it over to me. And I said, what for? He said, I'm going to give you a lot of books. I said, how? He said, just trust me. And sure enough, he gave me, I don't know, about 50 or 60 books, many of which have remained unread, but they're there on my Kindle, supplied by Arvind. I am going to miss him. Bombay is never going to be the same for me without Arvind, but I've so appreciated all my interactions with him, as I'm sure all of you have.
Even though I'm Arvind's son, I think I've known him for fewer years than most of the people around here. And just one thing that struck me was that we've already talked about him being a voracious reader, and one of his favorite books was My Family and Other Animals, which is about an English family that's transplanted to Greece and all the crazy shenanigans that ensue. And one of his favorite characters in that book is a Greek taxi driver who sort of adopts this English family and just decides to look after them and become their go-to man. And from this book, Arvind picked up one of his favorite phrases, which was, this man will be our friend, philosopher, and guide. And so he used that, and I feel like that everyone who knows him will feel that describes him to a T as well. He was a great friend to many people, and he made friends everywhere. I had a friend from college where we discovered that her parents knew or were working with someone who my father had befriended on a train, on a long distance train, just because he was carrying a book, and then they got talking. And similar to that, Arvind was always a philosopher, where given the chance to expound on things, he would happily expound, and he would also listen to you if you were in conversation with him. He would listen to your philosophies and your points of view. And similarly, as a guide, he would, if anyone ever needed anything, he would always be willing to take an extra step. He would be willing to go all the way to take it up to 11. The hundreds of people who have stayed at his home both before and after marriage can attest to this. And even just the connections he'd made between discrete groups of friends. So it's quite emotional seeing so many people here, so many people in person and tuning in online, and getting the messages we've had from people over the past couple of weeks. I think all that is just testament to Arvind as friend, philosopher, and guide. And I think that very much informed who he was as a person. It came from his heart, from his sheer love for other people and his desire to know more, whether that was in books or whether that was wanting to know more about the people, about people who started strangers and then became close to his heart.
Uh, like all of you were saying, it's just too difficult to digest the fact that we are here today, and Arvind is not around for us to say happy birthday, Arvind. But still, happy birthday, Arvind. Arvind was kind of he was a governing body member of Eklavya. That's how I first met him. But he was never just a governing body member. He was like this person, like you were saying, Nandan, he was this friend, philosopher, and guide to all the people, all of us who he met whenever he came to Eklavya, and even beyond that. And like Nagasela was saying, Preeti and Arvind always opened the door of your house to anybody of us who wanted to be in Mumbai for some work or the other. And so it was like, here's this person who you can turn to whenever you need. And I just feel that I was so looking forward. I mean, he was always there when he would see something that he didn't like. He was so open and frank about it, and he would talk about it, and he would sometimes even reprimand about it. And yet there was so much affection, even when he was reprimanding for something that he didn't like, or he was clearly saying about something that he didn't like. So that mix of being so concerned about processes which have to be right, and yet people who are carrying out those processes. I'll just stop here. Thanks.
I'm Mihir, and Arvind was a chairman
May I
of our
speak?
board of All India Disaster Mitigation Institute. He is still, as far as the charity commissioner is concerned, and we are concerned. He's also a brother-in-law and one of the favorite son-in-laws of my mother. But he was a friend in the end to all of us. He may have, I'm sure, successfully helped BP re-strategize Bharat Petroleum, their business and expansion. But I think far more energy and strategy he helped us put together to run a ship that we are running. It's hardly a ship, a small little frigate, but always ahead and always at the forefront. When things were going well, of course, he was encouraging and giving new ideas. And when things were not going well, especially twice, once with the political context had changed so much and had become very hostile, particularly vindictive, and very cleverly, like a great strategist, he helped Chanakya. He helped us navigate through that, and we've survived. We were just about to end at the time. And second, after COVID crisis, there was all the projects to be done, and money received, no work delivered. And anybody who's worked in civil society, such a great, difficult situation, but we helped survive, and touch wood, we are back up again and expanding. So always there to support in a very casual, informal, but a substantial way. One thing he made me realize, and we discussed a lot, maybe seeing this group it comes to my mind. And that he said that we are all, and I think by force of this tune, it'll become even more clear. He said we are all being made from a citizen to a voter, and I don't want to accept that. We are, not a mere voter. We are a citizen, and we must leave that full citizenship. We can't submit to the state, and that's something repeatedly we discussed, and he believed, and I believe, and so that was one thought as an organization, but as an individual, a great, not a contribution, but a realization, a reminder. And second was, he was not religious at all. Religiosity, in fact, tired him. But his observations on religion were very apt. And that we are being turned from a bhakta, a devotee, in a very large sense, not particular this religion or that or whatever, but into a bhokta, a consumer, and not only bhokta of consumer items that we are consuming, but religion itself is being merchandised. And he said that we are turning that into, either it may be a flag or it may be a picnic visits to some of the ancient sites. But that was the second thing we talked a lot in the recent past. Just maybe a month and a half ago, he said, your same year, date of birth as date of birth here is his. And he said, oh, you should be thinking about your future. And I said, yes, and hand over and stepping down and other things. And I said, how do you go about doing it? And he sent me a list of questions, very personal to me, not a corporate list of questions about how do you hand over an organization. And I said, I'll send you back this next week. I took more than a week, whole month. And the day this happened, I had just taken up that day in the morning. I finished by 6 o'clock, all the questions. I was happy. And I said, oh, if I send this, maybe some grammar, some thought is not quite adequately expressed. So I'll send it tomorrow. And I haven't sent it. The only way so far I have been able to come to terms with what has happened is that maybe if death could be a book, then that's a book he wanted. And if the world beyond death is a series of books, libraries, a corner that Mr. What's his name? Kant, his colleague just mentioned, then that's Amitabh. Maybe that's where, he just wanted to go and find out what is it. If that's a solace that gives me. Or maybe if there is a divine intervention, then not, enough books on this book corner. There is other books in other book corner, which is not quite here, accessible to us, but to him. And there he is with invariably not the expert wisdom, but wisdom which is exploratory, which is the cutting edge, and something that is emerging. That's how only I can make some sense of what has happened. I've hugely benefited from him, and I feel very indebted. Thank you.
To most people sitting on the table and online, I might be a new name. I'm Rajesh Bhatt, Preeti's brother. And while most of you were his friends or colleagues, I've been directly related to Arvind. So it was a very different relationship. When he came into our family, it was a very different feeling because culturally, regionally, language-wise, everything was very different. He came into our family as a brother-in-law, but ended up as a brother. He was more than a brother. We, like all of you said, he came so close to people that one would forget the other relationships and just become friends. So with me also, it was the same relationship. Be it any topic, any subject, he would always have something to say and to contribute, not just say, but to contribute meaningfully to whatever was happening or not happening. Though he was not on our board, I also, like Mihir, I also have a voluntary organization. And Arvind, I mean, I must thank him for that my organization has been using his space for last several years. And I must thank him for that. And that's all without any rent or reward or any expectation whatsoever, even verbal expectation, thank yous and acknowledgements, etc. So that has been his nature. He has, like many others said, again using the same cliche, friend, philosopher, and guide. Even to a relative like me, a brother-in-law, he was the same. We also had our funny moments on dinner tables and within family circles, particularly because we were not very similar. Whereas on the dinner table, I would like the pots to be covered with leaves because the food would get cold. He would always dislike that, and he would just remove the leads. And I would prefer spoons. He would never use spoons. So all such small things have great memories about Arvind. But what was most striking about him was his reading ability. I mean, many people have talked about it. Till I met Arvind, I thought that I was a good reader. I would never call myself as an avid or a voracious reader, but I thought that I read quite a lot, and I was happy about myself. But when I saw Arvind, oh my God, what speed and what comprehension and what range of topics that he would cover. So many a times I would compare him to Mr. Know-All of Somerset Maugham. And you bring up any topic on the dinner table or in a meeting, and he would have something to say and meaningful something to contribute. But again, like the Mr. Know-All in the Maugham story, he was always considerate about others. In that story, the Mr. Know-All, if you have read the story, the character finds out that a particular lady wearing a particular necklace was worth millions of rupees, millions of dollars, whatever. But she wanted to hide that from her husband. And therefore, Mr. Know-All, at the cost of his knowledge or his ability to value the necklace correctly, he said the lie, and he said that no, this is a very cheap necklace. So for others, Arvind also would do anything. His knowledge was not his sort of his command. It never came to his head. He was always compassionate. He was always sympathetic. Not even sympathetic, he was empathetic. He could, though he was not an NGO person, I wondered how he could understand poor people, poverty, and so many other things so very well. Because we have had such conversations, and I would learn from him so much despite being in the sector for so many years. Um, one more thing, the last thing I would like to say is that when one saw Arvind, he was always in a hurry to finish something, do something, start something afresh, and he was always in a hurry. And he did so much in his life that one wondered whether God had given him 26 hours in a day, 2 extra hours to cope up with his work. Reading alone was so much that I thought that one could hardly read at the speed that he did. An amazing person he was. I don't remember him as a brother-in-law. Again, I remember him as a brother, a friend, and again, to use the cliche, friend, philosopher, and guide, would never forget him. And I thank you all, friends, that you got this meeting together and we had this opportunity to share our feelings. Thank you. Thank you, Arvind, and happy birthday to you.
I'm Priya. I met Arvind 42 years ago when we were doing MA together. And I was a lazy bum. So we did the evening classes because, you know, who wants to go to Kalina? So just do the evening classes at Elphinstone, and that's it. So way back in 82, 83. And then there was another friend. We found each other and we had a lot of fun together. Arvind joined late. And he was also at BPCL at that time, and he used to crib so much about BPCL, but that's another story, and I'm sure some of you can tell it better than I can. So every day he would threaten to resign, and every day we'd say, no, wait till you get another job. Anyway, so this went on, and we were a merry threesome. We had a great time. We would visit all the cafes. We would have Demika juice. We'd have a lot of fun, and books. Oh my God, he was always trying to educate us, and it was me resisting all the time. But so much so that 6 months down the line, somebody asked my friend, her name is Bharti, she's not here, she's in the US. She said, is he a boyfriend? Is he one of you? Is he a boyfriend? So without batting an eyelid, she says, oh, we share him. So that sort of set the quick. So I think he joined on a whim. He never picked up a book, but he knew more than the professors did. So if there was any participation in class, it was always his voice, and it was always him saying something obscure, which our fuddy-duddy professors had no clue about. So that was... exams that followed, Arvind tanked. I think we would have to wake him up and say, come for the exam kind of thing. The two of us did very well, but I can tell you, he knew more than us and anybody else who spent any time teaching us, educating us. And one of my regrets will always be that Amitabh Ghosh's latest, I didn't get an opportunity to discuss it with Arvind. I'm sure he would have had a take that was very different from... Anyway, so this was the start of a friendship 42 years ago. Then the spouses came along, then the children came along, and fortunately, everyone got along with each other. So it was so much fun. Not that we had a choice, because a lot of us were just, having a good time together. So simple dinners at home. We had a relationship apart from Arvind, getting to know each other's children. He was responsible for my daughter's interest in James Herriot, and he would bring her CDs from British Council and get her books to read, and she's very fond of him. And so also my son, when he was going abroad, they would have a lot of discussions on, step forward and stuff. So I want to say something, and I think it's going to come out wrong, but with Arvind, there was no burden of friendship. I know that friendship is not supposed to be a burden, and it isn't really, but he released you from any responsibility in the matter. He was your friend, and that's how it was. It didn't matter how you were, whether you kept up the friendship, he would keep it up, and it survived over dozen years of being in the boonies, no emails, so no, there was no computer, there were no mobile phones, but the friendship survived. And in maintaining friendships, he never ever asked for it, ever. I don't remember him even saying a simple thing like, can you pick me up, or can you, anything. But when he gave, and he gave a lot, it was so casually. So he helped out a distant relative of mine with a grant and actually told her how to do it. I mean, he was fantastic in the whole process, and never again did he refer to it or allow me to refer to it or allow me to say thanks or anything. He said, no, it was part of the job, and he did it. So his casual kindnesses were many. I mean, absolutely many, apart from the books that he gave you. Smoker's Corner, I'd forgotten about. Thank you, someone who mentioned it. And if you happen to mention an interest, or for instance, I have 3 cats at home, I'd get every article he read about cats, it used to be sent to me. And so it was amazing. So his ability to draw people is legendary. We all know it. And the number of house guests he always had, even in the early days and later. And I really think you all have to thank Preeti for this. She should get the biggest credit. So one of the misses was we were all supposed to go to Khajuraho together, Sanjay, myself, and Preeti and Arvind. And that didn't happen because of his sister's illness. His brother-in-law's illness and his sister having to live with him, and it just never happened. It's never going to happen. So to end whatever little I have to say, I've never heard Arvind complain about anything. I've never heard him negative about anything. And I was thinking that this is probably the best way he would have liked to. Quietly, without a fuss. But what about us? I mean, we all thought we are going to grow old together. We are going to do this, that, and the other together, be there for each other, as we will be for each other even now. So he will be sorely missed, not just by Preeti and Nandan, not just by people in this room, but by many more whose life he's touched. And on this birthday, he would have been 64 today, 65 today. I think we are all going to miss him. God bless. I hope he's happy wherever he is.
Yeah, my name is also Arvind, and as others have said, can you be seen? See, I've known him also from probably 1979, 79, 80. It's difficult because through over 40 years as a friend, and then for a longish period as governing body member, as friends of Eklavya's friends, and things of with Eklavya's context. So I won't say much about Eklavya's thing. There are others here, but definitely, you see, when I first met him, we were both very young and sort of, we used to walk on Worli Sea Face and talk about life, and we were all sort of at a loose ends what to do. There were pressures. We wanted to do many things, and there were pressures. There was insecurity, and that's how we became close friends. And we would really take long walks on that Worli Sea Face, going up to the Worli village, coming back. He used to live on Venus apartments, and I used to stay on the other side. Then when, as people have said, when he joined BPCL, that became a rendezvous. And obviously in 79, 80, we went to Smokers Corner very often. And as other people might not know, he introduced me to the chairman's library at BPCL. He would say, "अच्छा, come at this time, अब वो library में अपन चलेंगे, उस समय कोई नहीं होता है, आराम से जाके देखेंगे क्या है." And it was a very good collection, a chairman's library there. So I said, "यार, तू कहाँ घुस गया, कुछ कोई बोल देगा." बोले, "नहीं, तू क्यों चिंता कर रहा है, यहाँ ज्यादा कोई पढ़ता नहीं है यहाँ पर, तो वो बोलते हैं जितना पढ़ना पढ़ लो." So we would visit that chairman's library and often borrow books from that. And the other, uh, I started teaching at Sophia College for a short semester, and my father had retired. He had to leave Bombay, and I said, "यार मैं ये पढ़ा तो रहा हूँ, but what will I do? You know, I can't survive in Bombay. I don't have a place." तो बोले, why are you feeling worried? वो अगर कुछ नहीं होगा तो सिवरी आ जा. He had this place in Sivri, which was the bathroom was huge, you know, and we had often spent nights there. And sometimes I had another friend, and people said, "मेरे को मालूम नहीं कहाँ जाए." I said, "कुछ मत कर, तू अरविंद के वहां चला जाना, बोल देना कि आया हूँ, 2 रात रुकना है, ये है, और रुक जाना." तो वो सिवरी वो became one adda of all this thing, and it was a huge place with huge bathrooms. And then, of course, there was, I remember there was fats also around, and uh, we used to have these discussions. Of course, he was very fond of discussing, and and we could also pick up issues with him. And with fats, of course, fats would always poke it out and say, "यार यार रहने दे यार, इतना भी मत फेंको." But he was it was great because obviously I uh, uh, I discovered you see towards the last few years, ever since we had this net and things like that, that really gave him a lot of way to express himself. And we used to have a lot of online, he would send posts, and very, very relevant ones. And then we would often pick on things to discuss. And actually, this is what he liked doing all the time. Even in our younger days, we used to do it off and on. But he would do that with very, very many people. And obviously, as people have said, he would help in innumerable ways. I remember one clear incident. We had shifted, Anu and I had shifted to Devas, and we said we'd live like any ordinary teacher here or whatever. We are not. So she said, "Okay, let's buy a stove and kerosene." Suddenly we discovered we have a stove and we know how to use it. But there's no kerosene in Devas. The whole it's not like you get to make an effort, go to the ठीक है थोड़ा राशन की दुकान गए वहां थोड़ा चिल्ला चोट किया ये किया वो किया, but nothing happened. And slowly I discovered, this was becoming terrible because then somebody told me, "Sir, आप उस राशन की दुकान पर क्यों चिल्ला चोट कर रहे हो? वो पूरा केरोसिन तो जॉनसन एंड पेटर को जाता है, वो राशन की दुकान तक तो कभी पहुंचता ही नहीं है, जॉनसन एंड जॉनसन को जाता है, ये टाइल फैक्ट्री है यहाँ पर." तो मैंने कहा यार अब जॉनसन से लड़ाई लेना तो थोड़ा ज्यादा ही है. एंड देन आई टोल्ड हिम कि आई थिंक आई हैव हैड इनफ, मैं ये अब नहीं कर सकता, तो मेरे को अब गैस कनेक्शन दिलवा दे. उसने शुरू में ही कहा था कि तू वहां जा रहा है, मैं कनेक्शन दिलवाऊं. मैंने कहा नहीं नहीं, मेरे को नहीं चाहिए. हाँ, और श्योर इनफ आफ्टर 6-8 महीने बाद मैंने कहा यार अब मैंने हार मान ली, अब तू दिलवा दे. सो this was the way, I suppose, Fats is also around. Uh, I got to know so many activists where you're sitting at CED. That's where I first came in 79 and attended a slideshow by another friend of ours who's no more, Joe Pinto. And that's how I became a part of the science education group and got to know Fats and Arvind. And Arvind I knew separately, but that's how we became close. And see, he was, as people have said, uh, uh, he was greatly concerned about social change as much as any of us would be. So we might call ourselves activists or whatever, partial activists or something like that. But he was a supporter of all kinds of activism. And he did that so effortlessly that I absolutely admired him for that, because I have, introduced him to such a range of people. And I wondered, यार ये ठीक है करेगा कि नहीं, कुछ हो ठीक ठाक हो जाएगा. But it was absolutely effortless. And even when I had issues, when I became director for Eklavya, we were going through very rough times. And he said, "Nay, we'll pull it through. Don't worry." So it was his support at that time that made me take it up. Otherwise, I was almost saying that, I'm not going to take this up. I don't see a way out of this uh, crisis that we were going through, both internally and externally. But he said, "Nahi, we'll be able to hold on, don't worry." So that's how I think that energy and that life that he could uh, imbue us with was absolutely great. And I couldn't, as you said, all believe it, because last time I spoke to him, he and Preeti were going to Chandida's place. So I said, ठीक है यार, तुम अभी जा रहे हो संडे को चंदिता के यहाँ, मैं थोड़े दिन बाद फिर से बात करता हूँ. और फिर वो एक फिल्म की बात थी, तो उस पर डिस्कशन हुआ. And then just a few days later, it was over. But I suppose there are great memories, and we'll live with him.
Well, I came to know Arvind through my Arvind and through Suresh. And I knew Preeti before because we were in test together. And the first time I met him, I think it was in his house in Sunya Sophia College. And little get-togethers there, or kuch activist meeting, ya kuch tha udhar. And then gradually came to know him better. And then he was there for our wedding, and Preeti. And ऐसे धीरे-धीरे, I became friends with him. But I really, as you all said, that बिल्कुल करुणा से भरा था वो, full of compassion, and I think of him as a laughing, friendly guy, whom you can depend on for anything. And then we had a holiday together in Dhar and Mandav. We shared another holiday we went to Punjab and to Manali, and he would mix up with everybody. We went to Amritsar. My father was from Amritsar, so we went to my cousin's house. He had no qualms, आराम से रहना, सब जगह सबसे मिल लेना. तो वो अभी भी याद है. And some naughty thing also we did together, because we both loved matchmaking. And and Suresh and I tried to do some matchmaking for him too, and we succeeded, which is a sore point in Preeti's life, but I'm sure she's happy about it. थोड़ा सा हंसी मजाक भी होना चाहिए आज. और he was like everybody said, when I got my Kindle, and he introduced me to the Caliber software, which I didn't know anything about. And उसके बाद तो मैं पता नहीं कितनी हजारों किताबें मैंने डाउनलोड की होगी, which I'm not always read. But that he was like that. और उनके घर में I have lived in every house of his. There's a very mansion house. And Preeti, since we have a special bond also, because Preeti is a good friend too, and even CVS together and in TIS together. So there was a special feeling, and he was always there for my crisis, any crisis, for also helping my daughter, my son-in-law. उसके पास हमेशा resourceful kind of person he was. And 2 years ago, we were there by surprise on his birthday in Preeti, and we had some lovely cake. And I have some
Jasmine.
two of us TIS friends were also there, Jasmine and Shama. And इस तरह से I don't know how to say, but I have had very happy memories of him. And उस दिन जब FATS का message आया, तो it is like for everybody, it's a bit of a shock. And I'm not one of those who regularly is writing to him or anything like that, but he's there. He was always there for me. And I'm just happy to have known him, and I'm sure he'll be there looking upon us today and feeling happy that, so I'm just wishing him a happy birthday. और प्रीति तुम्हारे लिए बहुत सारी हिम्मत, और नंदन आपके लिए भी. तो we are there for you, and तुमको आना है देवास. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yes, please go ahead.
I'll be brief. Unfortunately, my interaction with Arvind was largely confined to the Eklavya governing body where we work together. And as there are many people from Eklavya here in this meeting, the almost unanimous, my reaction on hearing the news was almost the same as that all the others. One word we used was unbelievable. Arvind was so full of life that it seemed just unbelievable he could go at this time. It just didn't seem. But I just want to talk about one or two aspects which are different, because I think others would have spoken already and will speak about working together in Eklavya. So one thing is, last time we met, Arvind and I met in Bhopal for an Eklavya meeting, of course. One of the last things we did together, the last thing we did together, go out for ice cream with a bunch of youngsters. There was a group of people who were much younger than us, and it was interesting to see how Arvind was just completely free with them. You know, that was one of his characteristics, that he could just uh, it, he spoke to them. He gave them advice when needed, and we had an interesting discussion on North India versus South India, a semi-serious discussion, I would say. So this aspect of his, of being able to relate to younger people, uh, I've seen at first hand more than once. I must say this, that of his activism, I came to know little bits only gradually, and much of it I did not know until recently. Okay. There was one chance to visit his house, but on that particular occasion, I could not make it to Bombay. Now, I want to talk just one personal thing, recollection, which is not known to anyone else here. Mm, Once I was in some trouble because of some stupid government thing. They declared that my domestic gas connection was illegal. So I couldn't order refills anymore. This was very strange. I mentioned it to people. I mentioned it casually in an Eklavya meeting. So Arvind said, "I can help, perhaps. Let me see if I can help." Then the meeting dispersed. I didn't do anything about it. Then he said, "You haven't sent me the details." So I sent him the details, and I don't know, he followed it up with multiple people, and my problem was solved within a much shorter time frame than I had expected. So this is something that he just did, and as someone said, there was no expectation that I would do anything in return for him. So it seemed a natural thing for him to do. That, okay, this guy is in trouble, let me help you out, and he did that. So this 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 particular quality of his, uh, I saw at first hand here, but we had many little discussions. Unfortunately, all very brief, because they were on the peripheries of these GB meetings, and material that he used to send me, and occasionally we did speak to each other on the phone, independent of Eklavya. We did occasionally. But it remains a regret with me that I did not get to know him more closely and get to engage with his other work. That's a regret. Thank you.
So just I wanted to share, Arvind had been my colleague. So we knew approximately all through our tenure in Bharat Petroleum, but from 96, when I went to information technology, so that time it used to be something like EDP, electronic data processing, in which Arvind was there. And through my own interest, I used to interact with these people, dealing with that time, especially when frame computer had come to company, and I had some models done and were actually seeking their help. So through that, off and on, I knew Arvind that way. But when I took over the department, then of course the acquaintance taken. As I have been hearing, he was very, very sociable person, very cooperative. He could go out of way to help anybody. So that kind of thing I had known of him, and I knew that Arvind had a very wide social circle of a different kind. That also I was a bit aware, and I was curious really to hear about him. Arvind had been, from 96 to, if I remember correct, up to
2004 that I was in Bharat Petroleum. Thereafter, I had left for Petronet India, and our contact became a bit thinner. And thereafter, of course, 2010, I went to IIT Kharagpur. And thereafter, so almost I was not in contact with him, even on mails. But for approximately 10 years, Arvind was the first kind of critical reader of my writing. So we had an unsigned contract like that. Whatever I wrote, most of my books written during those times were critically read by Arvind and was very, very valuably commented. So I would never forget. And just a couple of weeks back, probably Priti knows that, they happened to be to Priti Theatres for a documentary screening. And after years, I was actually getting into contact with him again. And so by that time, anyway, the looks had changed for a moment. Actually, I couldn't recognize him and not like that. But then he was with his normal self and said that he has now a lot of time, more than even before, and then we can resume our relationship. So it was really, and the day I got the news, I was a bit shocked that day itself in the morning, I thought of transmitting certain things, and to him for resuming our kind of work. But this kind of shocking news came, and I could manage to, because I was not in on the circuit, Bharat Petroleum circuit also, to very odd contact, the news reached to me, and some way I managed to see him at his house. That's it. There is many.
Yeah, hi, I'm Kalpana, for many of those who don't know who I am. So, like, I met Arvind also about 40 years ago. And, it's a funny thing with friendship because you don't think about it. You don't think about how many years have you known a person. And it's only that night when Nandan called me on the 16th, and I couldn't sleep most of the night. And I kept thinking, when did I meet this guy? And then I remembered it was thanks to the Bhopal gas tragedy, and I had just come back to Bombay after being in Delhi with Indian Express. I was editing Express magazine, and some of us journalists decided to set up the Bhopal Relief Trust. And I was told that there's this Arvind Krishnaswamy who works with BPCL, and he's going to be the treasurer, and I was bludgeoned into being the secretary of this trust. So I said, who's he? So whoever, all of us would set it up, all of us being journalists mostly, they said that he's the only systematic guy over here. So, so for treasurer, he's the right person. So anyway, I sort of peripherally knew Arvind. I knew who he was and he knew who I was. But we got to know each other really well after he married Preeti and after Nandan came along and they were in my neighborhood and we would meet very often. I've seen Nandan grow up. And I think everybody said this thing, this effortless friendship, which was not a burden. It was not stated. There was no big hoo-ha about it. But, he was there. And with my family also, my dad loved him. He would come, he and Nandan would come. My father loved Nandan. And so I don't know, he was always there. So, in the last year, especially when they were literally walking distance from where I live, and we would meet in the park and, often if I had nothing on in the evening, I'd just go over there to their house. And Arvind showed his friendship, as we call it now, with things like, I had to have a cataract operation. I said, what's the big deal? I'll just take a cab and go, and come back. He said, no, don't be silly. Came, it was really no big deal, but, he was there. He was there for me. And he was really like a brother. I don't say this idly because it's not often that you make a friend who becomes like family. And I remember somebody, I think one of his colleagues talked about his sandals and bush shirt. And I would keep asking, what the heck do you do at BPCL? He said, I don't know, some systems and all that, kind of thing. You just dismiss, you would never tell me. So finally, I harassed him so much as I'm not leaving till you tell me what is your position in BPCL. He said, I'm executive director. I said, I'll give you one slap. All this time you have this big title and you pretended like you're just some chaprasi who goes in and out of
BPCL. But that was quintessential. Arvind. He never made a big deal about all these things. And after that night, I was just thinking that many of us have many friends at many different levels. And we cherish them for various qualities that they have. And it's never, there's never an end point when you're going on with your life. And then suddenly the person who is that disappears and just leaves you. And that is when it sort of hits you that you really have to appreciate and cherish every friendship that you have. So happy birthday, Arvind. He and I were supposed to celebrate both our birthdays together on the 20th of May, the day that Preeti and he were going to come to vote in the same neighborhood where they lived and where I still live. But that was not to be. So anyway, that is my Arvind.
Hi there, Preeti and Nandan and friends of Arvind. This is John and Nitya from London. We've got to get back to work, so we'll be very brief. People have touched on this remarkable combination of generosity, friendliness, and intelligence. It's a wonderful mixture. We're very pleased to have known Arvind, and we'll miss him very much. It's very interesting, by the way, to put faces to a number of names that we've heard over the years. He's arrived at our place with items made over at Eklavya, so it's very interesting to see people from that organisation and to see other people who he's talked about. He was very proud of his work. As was just touched on, his BPCL work was always a little bit mysterious. He'd come back from the office having apparently just read things all afternoon and would say, "How was work?" And he'd say, "Relaxing." So we were never quite sure what he actually did in the office, but I have no doubt that his brains were greatly valued by BPCL, and I guess that was his role in that organisation. So it's sad circumstances, but great to see you all, and I hope to go to the pub this evening and to raise a pint of beer in Arvind's memory at a pub where we've drank before on his trips to London. So good to see you all, and we'll enjoy memories of Arvind and learn from things he's told us for many years to come.
Hi everyone, it's hard for me to talk without crying. So I probably won't say very much except to say how incredibly generous he was. And you all touched on that. Preeti and Nandan and Arvind just opened their hearts to all of us. And it wasn't just us, it was for us, our friends, children of our friends, their friends, their children. Their Bombay house has just been open to everybody. He's also been incredibly generous in sharing his intellectual interests and curiosities. I think we got emails from at least twice a week with various suggestions. I must admit, I didn't read them all, but the last one he sent, I did reply to, and we had a bit of a conversation, which is good. His generosity in all the work he's done for all the Eklavya and all the other organizations. We'll miss him terribly. Thank you.
I'm Neelam's sister, Shaila. The first time, the first time I met Nirmal was the first time that I met Arvind. Neelam had rung me up and told me I was in Delhi at that time. We were staying in the All India Institute, Ayurvigyan Nagar. I don't remember. I don't know if Nirmal remembers, but that's the first day I saw him. And Neelam had told me he's coming with a very dear friend. And all that I have to say is that throughout my life, I have seen this kind of friendship is something incredible. I mean, through Nirmal, I came to know that there can be people who are such genuine friends, and Arvind was always around. So this is going to be, my daughter just rang up from the US and she said, "Mama, please tell Preeti auntie, I'm going to really miss him because he was just part of our world." So Arvind, happy birthday. You'll always be there with us. That's all.
I just want to say, Arvind, hi. I wish you a very happy birthday. Wherever you're flying, we miss you a lot. I don't know what to say. You've been so good. you've been such a good friend with Praful, us, Praful Bidwa, you, Preeti, and then us. I remember those days, and we didn't meet that often, but you were always a treasure in our hearts. And I'll never forget how you supported me with my magazine. I was struggling, and you helped get me ads from your company. And I'll always be grateful for that. And I'll never forget 15 years ago on my 60th birthday, how you danced. Did any of you know that Arvind can dance like crazy?
Oh, no, that's a surprise.
When we didn't have bhang that night, but nor did we have weed. Unfortunately, we didn't have any of that. But he was just high on life, and I'd never known this side of Arvind where he was so agile and light on his feet, and the joy in his heart, the way he danced, it was, it's just stayed in my mind. Have any of you watched him dance like that? You must have. When you were born, you must have danced around with that. Yeah. So that's all I wanted to say. Preeti and Nandan, we're with you always, and Arvind is always with us. Wherever you're flying with the stars, you're here. Take care.
Really, I really love hearing every word brings.
I came to know Arvind very late in my life, and I guess it's the last 10 or 15 years, perhaps. So, of course, he and Preeti were very good friends with Chandita, but somehow I wasn't at that time part of their. I mean, I didn't get to know them well. I just knew them. I knew who they were. It's only the last 10 years or so that I met Arvind and Preeti quite frequently. Once in a while, but quite frequently. And whatever I heard today, it's all very, very, in my short encounters or brief encounters with Arvind and Preeti, I know how true what everybody has said and how much their generosity, their way they support one's various, one needs something. And, I don't think I even ever said, Arvind, can you do this? It just, I don't know how he knew, but he said, it was a nice gestures, more than just nice gestures, they were actually quite substantial help. And his know all things also was, very useful at times because I'm quite incapable of doing anything on my own. So it was very nice. And of course, in the last 6-7 months of Chandita's life, both Preeti and Arvind, Preeti came almost every time Chandita was in the hospital. It was Arvind with all kind of suggestions from ambulances and wheelchairs and all kinds of very practical stuff, which he did. And I don't think I would have been able to do that on my own. I know that. So it was very important, that friendship. Everybody said everything rang out, shined. Of course, the other thing I knew about his book stuff, and he was a bit of a couldn't avoid talking about books. And we met about 3 weeks before he passed away at my place. And again, conversation, small bit of it was all about books. And shall I send you this? And shall I send you that? And it was very interesting. So we shared all those kind of similar interests, especially crime stories, crime fiction, and spy novels, which we both seem to like quite a bit. So yeah, very, very nice. We had this fortnight we really felt it. And this today's meeting really brought out all the wonderful things about Preeti and Arvind. Thank you for arranging this.
Our problem is, I don't know what to say. We grew up together. We did almost everything together for more than 40 years. Till 7:30, we were speaking to each other. At 8:15, he was gone. So after that, what is there to say? We said everything that we could. We did everything together. We didn't speak to each other, over the years. There are times when after I discovered WhatsApp, he was already on WhatsApp. After I discovered WhatsApp, we kind of sent messages to each other. We didn't necessarily speak, but I think at least once a day, there was some messaging going on. And then, of course, the four of us took a couple of holidays together. Our last holiday together was in January. We went around to Tanzania to look at lions. We saw a lot of lions, and then we hung around in Zanzibar, doing nothing. And then we came back, and then he went. What can I say? Preeti is there, Nandan is there, and we are there. We'll always be here. They'll always be here.
Yeah, we miss him. We miss him a lot.
Actually, I wasn't going to say anything because just listening to everybody, I mean, my sort of literally heart is suffused with so much love and admiration for Arvind. I mean, he came to me as a dowry because as Chetana's friend when I got married, and he was a treasure, invaluable piece of dowry that he came. And we became individually also very good personal friends. Everybody talked about his love of books, and yes, I also am the recipient of that. When he came to know that I'm involved in cinema and as a writer, ever so often, he would come across something, either a book or an article and a long essay, and he would send it off. Now, obviously, he wasn't focusing on cinema, but yet the frequency with which I got those articles, I couldn't keep pace with that. And the point is that he must be reading so much for him to just accidentally stumble, upon these things. Imagine how much he was reading. And again, one day, Kalpana, I asked him myself, I said, "Tu ye BPCL mein karta kya hai? You don't look like a corporate person, obviously. Tu karta kya hai?" He says, "Sach baat hota, main kuch nahi karta hu. I have the kind of job where I don't have to do anything. एक डेढ़ घंटे में काम खत्म कर देता हूँ. After that, I just sit, put up my feet and read. And I have long lunches." I didn't know he was executive director. I thought he must be some, God knows, communication, some editor. I don't know. I mean, I couldn't even imagine what he was. He never revealed. He just dismissed.
And he kept calling it a non-job.
Yeah. कि कुछ नहीं है उसके अंदर.
That's when I realized this. दाल में कुछ काला है.
I know. And I mean, of course, everyone has a regret when a close friend goes. So even I feel that I wish I had met him more. I wish I had got to know him more. And this for me is very precious because I'm discovering through everybody's personal experiences, parts of his personality. On the 4th of June, we had decided that Preeti, Nandan and Arvind would come home and we'd watch the results together with John and Rajni and whichever other friend would like to join in. And it was my idea, and I had said that we should detach ourselves from it and make it like we're watching a cricket match or something. Isko itna hua, iska itna hua, score track karo. And we will not get affected by it. But all of us knew we wouldn't, which is why being together was important. But in my mind, the one factor which actually gave me that strength of solidity, us din, I will not feel overly, depressed or in despair, etc., was the Arvind factor. Because that robust, smiling, cuddly presence that he has. I mean, like a heart the size of a football field. Okay. and could accommodate so many things and so many friends with such specificity and particularity that I am actually not surprised when I hear everybody talking that they had a very specific relationship. It wasn't just one sweeping his personality, which all of us partook of, but for each one, there was a specific thing that he was able to give. And you, of course, I mean, I envied you because you knew him so well. So I don't know, that disbelief comes in waves, just can't, like literally, I can't imagine the world without Arvind. And I felt that about Praful also when he went. Suddenly, can't imagine a world where there's no Praful. Rajiv Tiwari, my very dear friend, again, same thing, my brother. So he's one of them, Arvind. And I discovered that he was that for so many people. So many people are shocked into disbelief because something has gone from your life and you wonder, how will I live with it? I mean, Priti also wrote to me so sweetly, just that switch. She said, we didn't go out together to every place. So whenever she says, even now when I go out, so immediately say, I must go and share with Arvind. And yes, all of us had that. I had also so many things to learn from him and share with him. We had one running joke because when Rajni's book, Bazar's Conversations and Freedom, a very tough book, but I was kind of privileged because she passed the manuscript to me. And then when the time came for the book release in Nehru Center, she said, you, please, moderate it or be the anchor. I said, yeah, sure. And I did know that one of the people that she'd shared the manuscript with was Arvind. So from the stage, I remember saying that I was a little, puzzled as to why with a, person with a moderate intellect, she's sharing it, whereas, intellectual giants like Arvind Krishnaswamy have read it. He never let me forget that. So he went on, every time he wrote, he would sign off intellectual giant and make fun of me. And then he used to call me Bollywood superstar. It became that joke where we would mock each other in this friendly way. He was so wonderful. He was so wonderful. We'll all have to learn to live with it. And I hope that whenever we meet, I'm sure we will be sharing a lot about Arvind. And once the grief period is also over, he'll continue to enrich our lives. And we will be able to visit memories of him without the pain and the disbelief. And we'll get used to it. Well, happy birthday, Arvind. Happy birthday. You will still be with us on the 4th. If I am in despair, I will remember what you would have said. And I will take succor from that. And
So yeah, I knew him through my father Nirmal, or Fats, as some of you would know him. So I've kind of grown up around him or in and out of his house. I've taken my own time, getting into my own. But over the last 30 years that I've known him, there's always been a certain comfort, going to his house. There's never been, while I have always, often for the largest part, been uncomfortable and been fairly socially awkward among a lot of people, including going to their house. But still, there was that comfort with him. And I never found that, he was judging or anything of any of that sort. And of course, there were the books. So, that was another great part. So, yeah, I mean, this is still to sink in because one is, of course, also that him along with Linus, which is his cousin and my dad's other close friend, they were almost, I wouldn't say like father figures, but almost like father figures. Someone, I looked up to, and someone I kind of confided in also more so with Linus, but I would also like to kind of run things past Arvind as well. He was particularly happy that, I had changed professions, and he would, like everyone, as most people have attested, that, send emails. So yeah, I would get them as well. Of course, I didn't read all of them, but yeah, I mean, And yeah, I was actually hoping to spend more time with him because I have time on my hand for the next 1 year. So I was actually hoping, and I never visited you guys when you shifted to Ulves. So my loss. And yeah, I mean, I remember how for a few years he used to come over to Santa Cruz for our Ganpati celebrations, and like my cousin or Shruti said, that they would get along really well discussing books, which, she was a voracious reader as well. And yeah, I really don't know what to say much more.
We had Preeti and Arvind for dinner one night with people we thought South Indians. And Arvind used to go on about this anger Superman at one stage in life. So I thought everyone would get along very well. So later he told me, who was that ass you invited? I said, no, why? So apparently he was curt with I hadn't noticed. He was curt with his wife a couple of times. And Arvind was so angry. He said, that's no way to... So actually saw him in a new light. Till then, I've never noticed.
That's not judgmental.
No. But because he said, I'm just saying that just as a... not judgmental.
Sharp, yeah.
Very sharp. And like I said...
No, I think
it's not that he tolerates everybody. So he had his...
Yeah. So he had his standards.
So I think... We can.
I'm feeling very envious of all of you because Arvind flashed through my life for a span of about 6-7 years, and then I lost touch with him after I moved away from Eklavya. But then he also came into our lives when we were going through a very challenging period in Eklavya, and we had taken on the responsibility of raising 1 crore rupees in 1 year, which at that time 1 crore was a figure in which it was difficult to think how many zeros there were in it for us. And naturally for us, Bombay was the place where we would go with a begging bowl to raise those funds. And we needed a place in Bombay. And Anu and Arvind Sardana, suggested that we go to Preeti and Arvind's place. We were not so sure, but I remember the day Rajesh Kendri and myself, we landed up at Zaveri Mansion. For us, Malabar Hill itself was, far too exotic a place. And that somebody's house on Malabar Hill would be, for the next few years, a second home for us was not in our mind. But I think within the first few hours, we knew we were at another home. And I think the next few years, particularly the next year or so, we were so much in and out of their home at all odd hours, reaching back late in the evening with all our stories of frustration and success with the begging bowl, and Arvind would be as eager to listen about details of each of those stories. And of course, there were days when we used to relax playing cricket with Nandan in the indoor cricket in the corridors of that house, which was always much bigger than its size, much bigger than its size. I wonder if Nandan remembers those years here. He was too yeah. But for us, that was such a reliever of tension, and I think both Preeti and Arvind were so sensitive towards this thing that we were going through. And I think for all of us in Eklavya, when we were considering inviting new members to join our governing body, in everybody's mind, Arvind was the first name. let's get him over. And of course, Arvind agreed, and that has become a long, long story, his contribution to Eklavya. I, of course, moved out of Eklavya in 2007 and somehow just moved out of the circuit. My visits to Bombay became very, very infrequent. I never really got to see Arvind again, except for one small meeting in Eklavya's governing body in Delhi. But oh, how I regret that. It's almost 17 years since I met him. But those 6 years, the day I heard this news, I was living through those moments again and again. And of course, there were so many circles in her life which kept intersecting. And I think that was so interesting to, meet people who would have known of Arvind, but known of him as a very self-effacing, but somebody whom you could always call upon. And it was a pleasant surprise for me to see Rajni there in this meeting. We just met in Bombay a few months ago, but I'm sure she didn't know and I didn't know that we both knew Arvind so well. And I think that was Arvind for me. That's the way I see Arvind also, touching so many lives and leaving such a strong impression, but yet, so non-obtrusive, non-dominating, and yet, so leaving such a deep impression. So I will carry this regret with me all throughout my life that I missed out so many years in which I could have enjoyed his company more and more.
Maya Manka Mandir Ghanta Sabka Bada hai gyan Kyunki dikhari praja aur janta dari yahan sansad mein ab jaan haan dekho saathi raja lagaye jaan to bolo saathi kaun bajaye jaan Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Happy birthday to you.
A month has gone by since we lost Arvind, and yet my sense of disbelief that he's not there with us is as intense as it was on that night when Kalpana messaged me. And I think that's because, not only because it was so sudden and we had no warning, but because Arvind had such a vitality. I will always remember him, with his jaunty walk, jhoomte jhamte, with a book in his hand. He would arrive with that witty smile. And of course, in recent years, the book was replaced by a little Kindle, which must have had some million books. So that's what I will miss the most. That joyous and energetic in a very subtle way, a very subtle energetic presence, because more than anything else, Arvind always gave one the sense of relax and carry on, no matter what the challenge is. So it's not at all surprising that our friendship began with, in a sense, the formation of Insaniyat in Bombay. That's where we first met. A group called Insaniyat was formed in response to the Gujarat riots, violence. And through the years, we were together in so many different efforts, forums, business for peace. back in 2003-4 when we tried to mobilize business in favor of communal harmony. So for me, that's Arvind's legacy. That, to always remember that to give up, to be despondent is to give up, and giving up is not an option. And so Lal Salam and Zindabad, and always Arvind will be an inspiring presence to keep up the effort, never give up, and stay the course, and continue tirelessly to work for Bandhutva.
As I complete this compilation of tributes to Arvind, I'm reminded of the time when we had to decide to send most of our books to Bangalore. And most of those books had come from Smoker's Corner and New and Second-Hand Bookstore. And Arvind did not complain that much because he saw what we were doing, and he understood what it means to shift to a new regime of information knowledge, which we are still under the process, and we wanted Arvind to be there with us. We will miss you.